So, hi everybody. I'm Melanie with Rare Finds Travel and returning for another segment of my, hate to call it COVID-19 interviews from around the world. And today we have Tom Matthew. Hi, Tom from London.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, world. And Melanie.
So I had intended when I started these for them to be like a little snapshot of what's going on with COVID-19, like really, a real scoop. What's it look like on the ground? That's how I had intended it, because there's so much news it kind of overwhelms us all. So we can really kind of figure out what people are really living like, different places around the world, and also to share stories of goodwill and inspiration from these different locations. That had been my vision, but as it's turned out, it's kind of like a travel show almost, because I'm getting to hear these stories of these little virtual tours and new experiences that guides are coming up with. So that's been really fun for me, and I hope really fun for our viewers. So Tom, tell us, you are the Storyteller of London. Tell us how you got into become the Storyteller of London and what your job before COVID-19 looked like in London.
Well, I've always been a storyteller ever since I was a little boy, because I struggled to speak until I was about 5 or 6. And I've always been a storyteller. And I used to have various careers in the media and in working with video and things like that. And I really got started because I wanted to go and get some exercise. I was working at home a lot. I love meeting people, and I love history, and I love London as a city. London is an infinite subject matter. So I kind of see my brief as the London storyteller. I share the stories of the people, places, and personalities that I believe have made London the finest city on earth. And it's my pleasure to be able to share that with people. And I suppose I first started doing what I'm doing now as the London storyteller about 2.5 years ago. And it was a terrific success. I've had
so I must have met you right at the beginning. That's interesting.
Well, I think I had been in it, I think, for about a year when you sent that lovely couple over to London, and I spent a day with them, meeting them at St Pancras, and then I had a schedule worked out, like a military operation.
Right? I remember that.
And so I was probably about a year into this then, and it's just gone. It's been going from strength to strength. And in actual fact, I was at the start of this year about to start to branch out to do some really exciting things. I mean, I was launching speedboats, helicopters, and aside from doing my walking tours, I was about to launch helicopter tours. I had normally, and my favorite work is working with small groups of families. As you know, that's my.
Yeah, you were great with those 3 families that went over. Oh shoot!
I was going to charter helicopters to do tours in the air, and people could hire me for the day, and so I create a whole day for them. But part of that would also be going to explore the city from above. My plan was to.
That would be so much fun. You could do like from the sky to the underground, like.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I had and I had a huge project for the 24th that had been 24th of March, which I think will come back in September, which was the first time I worked with a corporate group. It was a top software firm, and I was curating for them a day where we were hiring out part of the Tate Modern, one of the world's biggest art galleries. We were and I created activities for them. So one of them was me doing a private tour around the house of Jimi Hendrix and George Friedrich Handel, the court composer of George I. They lived in the same house, hundreds of years apart. And I was going to host them around there, then take them on speedboats on the Thames, where they would listen to Handel's water music that was composed for George I for when he was conveying along the Thames. But when you go past Tower Bridge, the bridge with the big towers, that's where the speed limit ends, and that's where we were going to crank up Jimi Hendrix and go at high speed on these speedboats, coming along, and do various other things in the day. So a lot of hard work.
Don't let all your secrets out of the bag. Hold some of the secrets back.
There's more to come. But so it was really it had been a wonderful couple of 2.5 years, and we were just reaching a new level that I hadn't anticipated would happen for maybe another year or so. And with everything that's going on, you know, London's story is something which we've seen coronavirus or stuff like it before. We will bounce back. I've got no doubt. But I mean, it's great. I've been able to measure my success the last few years by looking at the stepometer on my phone. And normally, how well my business is doing is in line with the number of steps I take a day. And I've got up to an average of about 13,000 a day. And it does make me slightly sad that the last 2 or 3 weeks I've been at about, 3 steps a day because you can't go out.
To the bathroom. Okay, so that's a good intro to the next question, which is tell us what it looks like on this outside your window. What's it look like on the sidewalk outside your window right now with COVID-19? You know, London's ahead of the curve of us in the United States, but what's it look like there today?
Well, I was taking a couple of pictures for my mum earlier, so I can show you. So this is outside the front of my house.
Pretty quiet.
They're rather forlornly.
Wait, Tom, I can't hear you. I can't hear.
They're sitting out there rather sadly is my little sports car, which I can't drive at the moment. Well, that's outside. And if you walked out of my house and you looked left, I'm right at the top of the hill in London, so you can see the ridge, so you can see the whole of the city on that side. And on the other side, you can see Alexandra Palace, and this is my garden.
Nice.
So, but typically with the lockdown, what's it like? Well, I haven't been into central London since the 12th of March because.
And today is the 16th of April.
Yeah. That was partly because I went away for a few days to see my folks before we knew the lockdown was coming. My brother and his family in California locked down ahead of the curve like we did here, because we've taken it very seriously as a family. We're allowed out for exercise once a day. You see weird things like, do you remember 10 years ago when people used to queue overnight to buy the new iPhone when it came out of the Apple Store?
That's right.
People are queuing outside the shops now to buy food because you can't go in. It's one in, one out.
Yes.
When you go into shops, you can't. So what people are out doing, they're walking, they're jogging, they're cycling. But really, I'm not going out very much because what we're trying to do in this country is the more people that get it and end up in hospital, the more burden it puts on the National Health Service.
Of course.
And they are in our front line. They're our guardians. They're the people that save you. So the responsible thing is not just for my own health, but for other people.
Right.
Is really to try and avoid going outside. It's not like in Italy. In Italy, you can if you go to a shop and it's not close to your house, you can be fined quite a lot of money and you get a lifelong criminal record. In England, in Britain, what they did was clever. They nudged it. So they used this technique whereby initially they said, this is going on. We recommend that you keep your distance from people and you try going, don't try to go out that much.
Right.
And then we had a weekend, and during that weekend, there were a huge number of people that went out to the seaside or went to the parks, went to the pubs, and didn't listen. And what that meant was when the government then said, okay, we're going to set the following rules. So unless you can't work at home, stay at home, only go out once a day and for exercise, and try to go only to the shop for essentials and keep that to the minimum if you can, and unless you need medical supplies. And what happened was that because people the majority had seen people that had not listened, by that point, the majority of people in this country were behind the lockdown. But if they had done it the week before, and put down a really heavy lockdown, people wouldn't have gone for it. So people have been very compliant. The streets are quite empty. The buses and the trains are empty. There's a few health service workers on it. But really, it's about staying really at home. That's the responsible thing to do. So so my lockdown looks like this.
My lockdown looks like this. I'm up here in Maine renovating a guest house to open hopefully July 1st, but we will see. But that's another story. So what you're saying is that because the government was lax initially, people saw a lot of people breaking it, and maybe that made them nervous, or maybe that made them really question why it was important. Maybe it was important. So now the people are being really, really serious. It seems to me that queuing up outside of a shop so one at a time can go in, it seems to me that that's a little bit of a hazard. No?
Well, that's why I don't go to shops.
No.
I mean, you're right, but you keep 2 meters distance. And I should just say, I don't think the government were being lax. I think they were using a technique whereby they knew they had to win over the majority. And if you get 80% of the way there, that's right. That's a success.
It's like it's like in that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, when she said, "We have to make Enzo think it's his idea." Mm-hmm. It's the same idea. Well, I mean, the government making the Londoners think coming from them. That's smart. Buy-in.
And the shops have got food in there. It's just that they're doing a one in, one out, like in Italy. So you wait, and the trick really is to go as little as possible. It's very hard to get an online delivery.
Yes, here too.
Bear in mind, in London traditionally, in London, normally you can order from Amazon and get it delivered in the hour.
In the hour.
At the moment, you can't get deliveries, except for certain. The only shops that are open are essentials, and fortunately, that includes wine merchants such as Laithwaites who do home delivery.
So are they out of toilet paper like here in the U.S.? The crazy United States. They're having these toilet paper wars, which most of us are just rolling our eyes at. But do Londoners do that?
That was a thing. In actual fact, I came back to London before lockdown because I'd been for my birthday to see my parents.
Okay, happy birthday.
And I went into a supermarket. This is before you had to queue up.
Yeah.
And there wasn't it. But my local shop had some, and I had some. But so yes, the loo paper's been something. The thing that's really hard to get hold of is flour.
Oh, here too.
Yeah, because everyone suddenly decided they're post-Beatles, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and they're all I'm going to bake a loaf of bread. The firstborn loaf to go on my pine table. That was a weird thing. That's something which you've not been able to get hold of. And baked beans, very English thing.
Right.
Baked beans, right? We, particularly in the middle of the last century, we were a nation of tinned food from the war, and baked beans will keep you going. And they're quite hard to get hold of now because loads of people went out and panic bought. I didn't. And the sad thing about it is that the trash men, the bin men we call them, reported that there was a third extra rubbish about a week or 2 weeks into the lockdown, and that was all the fresh food that people had bought and hadn't eaten. Meanwhile, what I'm doing is I'm remembering all my grandmother's advice, because my grandmother served during World War II, and she remembers rationing. We had rationing here until 1952, and my grandmother would never let anything go to waste when it comes to food. So now everything in my kitchen, everything I'm eating up, because I know it's not that I couldn't get it, it's that it wouldn't be sensible for me to go out to the shop every 5 minutes to buy, you know, whatever. It's part of the reason why I got wine delivered, for example. You know, that way I've always got it here. If I want one, if I want a glass of wine, I've got some. But, you know, there's nothing worse with all this going on than you're sitting there and you think, I'd really like a glass of wine, but I've got to go down to the Temple of Doom at the bottom of the road. There is actually, Melanie, have you heard of an actor called Simon Pegg?
No, Simon Pegg. No, tell us.
You know Star Trek, the new Star Trek, they have Scotty. So that's played by an English actor called Simon Pegg. And he used to live on my road outside. Okay. And he made a film here some years ago, which is a bit apocalyptic. It was not a satire, it was a sort of a tongue-in-cheek zombie movie called Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
And that's basically, the location for that is where I live.
Okay.
So there's a shop that starts at the start of the film where he goes into it. That's my local shop at the bottom of the road.
Your wine shop.
So it's the most surreal thing, because you see people walking, some people in face masks and, you know, rubber gloves, and it looks otherworldly. And then and actually that's like something from that film. But I mean, typically it's quiet, it's weird. I did go out for a walk the other day in the evening, and I walked down the road and it was very quiet and it was empty, and it was a beautiful evening. We'd had some rotten weather and it was a beautiful evening. And I just thought, it's so strange that this is the world that we are in now. This isn't kind of how you thought dystopia or this sort of weird thing would be, because I'm walking down a street, the houses are all intact, the birds are singing, the summer breeze, the spring breeze was sort of, you know, lovely and warm. So we're intact in London. It's just that we're a bit
empty.
We're a little bit bamboozled by it all.
Yeah, of course.
It's a strange, it's weird, you know, it's weird, but it's okay.
Do you feel like you are approaching do you feel like you're getting past the peak? Do you feel like you're starting to get a handle on it? You feel like there's any chance? I love your teacup. Do you feel like there's what do you
Thank
see?
You. It's idea never let die.
Yeah, I like it. And what are you going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do when it opens up?
Well, first things first, I think the extension today is 3 weeks since they announced it, and they said initially it would be 3 weeks. I think it'll be another 3 weeks, because it's not about the peak is maybe coming this week. And in this country, you know, we built an extra 40,000 hospital beds in the space of 2 weeks.
Didn't know that.
We built entire hospitals. Our Formula One teams, you know, Grand Prix motor racing, they've created new devices to help treat people in the space literally since this started. All of the Formula One teams, 7 Formula One teams located in this country. I mean, so we're braced, I think, for the worst. We'll see how many people went out over the Easter weekend, which we've just had, because that's where you might see another spike. I think, so we've got plenty of capacity. I think we're looking at a 3-week extension, and then it won't get back immediately to normal. I mean, it's going to be, I think for everyone, it's going to be complicated, because it's not so much about the situation here in London or in the UK. We're a travel hub, so it's about New York, it's about all these, it's about Milan, it's about Paris. So it's going to be very complicated, but I think we're going to begin to see things ease, hopefully, in the next week or two. But
at least locally for you. I mean, at least so locally you could live a little more normally, even if the airport doesn't open for planes or international guests.
Yeah. I think so. And that brings me on to your question about what will I do once this is over. Well, I suppose there are two things. Well, I'll explain why it's a bit complicated. The first thing is I want to go to the pub.
Yes.
I want to go to the pub and have some delicious and warm English beer. The second thing I want to do, which I have to wait some time to do, is I want to go and see my parents.
Mm.
But what I realize is that after they lift it here, my parents, I will have to kind of, they've got two houses and I'll have to go to the one they're not in for about 12 days before I go to see them, because it's asymptomatic. If I had something and I passed it on,
Yeah.
I shouldn't do, because I'm here.
Right.
But I'd like to go and see them, play golf with my dad.
That's
You
nice.
know, that's you know, that's the thing. It's those are the things that really, you know, you miss. And then we'll see, you know,
Yeah.
we'll see what's
Do you
what.
have
It's
Father's
going to
Day
be.
do you have Father's Day in London? We
We
have
do.
Father's Day in June in the United States.
We do too.
Yeah. So maybe that's a
We
good
do.
goal, that by Father's Day you can play golf with your dad. Hopefully before that.
Well, I hope so, because that's the way I spent my birthday. When I was
Oh,
playing golf with my old man, which was a lovely thing to do.
yeah.
And you know, it's one of those things where they're safe, which is the main thing. And I know that I'm very lucky. I'm living here by myself, but I'm isolated. I'm busy, or as busy as I can be. My family, touch wood, are
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
And you know, all we've got to do basically is stay inside and stay safe. You know, it's
That's right.
that's the biggest national effort since World War II. So it's nothing compared to
Yes,
what
that's what you
those
do.
guys are doing on the front line. The
Yeah.
nurses, the doctors,
That's right.
key
So,
workers. I mean, they are, you know, they're the people that really we've got to be thankful to.
So I agree, really premier effort. I totally agree around the whole world. Oh, I'm losing the internet connection. Oh, there you're back. I had wanted to give you a chance to take us on like a virtual tour of your favorite experience, but now I've heard that you actually have a couple new experiences that you are working on that you can offer travelers once London opens up for tourism again. So maybe you want to pick one of those. So tell us some new things that people could dream about and get excited about for when they can return to London.
Oh, when they come back to London, well, I have a feeling that after this is kind of through, so I'm keeping myself busy at the moment with mainly recording the Diary of Samuel Pepys from the year 1665, which is on my YouTube. But I've got a kind of
Say that
feeling.
again, because I think people may have missed that. What's on
It's
your
the
YouTube?
Diary of Samuel Pepys from the year 1665, which is the year of the Great Plague and then the Great Fire in London. So
Okay.
I've been studying that. And one thing that I've noticed from that is that it took a while for things to get back to normal. People felt a bit uneasy. So I think after this, what I'm going to be doing is, as well as still offer, obviously still be focused on tours in London and creating bespoke experiences for people. A couple of areas that I think I'm looking at moving into are, I think people are going to have a passion for fresh air. So I've got a couple of projects, one of which is great country houses. So in England, we have these wonderful stately homes. So if I were to take you on a tour vicariously now, it might be to Blenheim Palace, designed by the great Sir John Vanbrugh, the birthplace of Winston Churchill in Oxfordshire. So I've got one idea, which is taking people to great houses if they want to get out of the city, to take them there. And the other thing are wine tours.
So hold on one second. So the great houses, so it would be a day trip out of London. You would have them for the whole day, and you would orchestrate a route where they could visit, you could see and actually get inside some of the great country houses and do a lunch or do a walk. That's what you're imagining.
Well, actually, a bit better than that. What I want to do is I want to find country houses where the families are still there and the stories of their family are still there. And ideally, I want to have country houses where I can take my guests to go and stay.
Oh, okay. So they'd stay
Not
for one
not
night, or they'd stay for a longer time?
depends upon their budget, really.
Oh, I
But
see.
it's not the sort of thing where you go and stay in like a hotel, where they've converted some old country house into a hotel. What
Right.
I'd like to do is take people to places where the families still live there. And because, these big stately homes we have in England, and give them that experience of the great English. We do some things that we do in this country really well. Like one of the things is heritage.
Yes.
That's something we're really good at. So things like that, pairing it up also with taking people out to some of the excellent new vineyards that have developed in the southeast in England the last
Okay.
20 years. So these are things which I'm working on, but they're, London, I am the London storyteller. I mean, London is kind of my thing. But because I offer bespoke experiences, I'm never really tied into one location. One of the things with the helicopters, for example, there will be people I know who've asked me before who they wanted to go out of London, and actually, they would have been happy to pay the money to go by helicopter. But it's, it'll be bespoke tours. I think really that's the main thing to do. I think the needs of my guests are going to be more particular. I think that if you're traveling post COVID-19 to a foreign country, you're going to want to be able to do so with confidence, because it's going to take a while for these things to wind up.
I agree.
And so I think the bespoke side of what I do is never going to be more valuable, because
Yeah.
I could see with my guests taking them into lifts in buildings before this really became a big problem, that some of them felt quite nervous, anxious about it. And what I had to begin to say to my guests were, anything that you're anxious about, you need to let me know, because I can plan around. I have that local
Gotcha.
knowledge.
Yeah.
The idea, what I do isn't a big group of 30 people. It's groups of people that know each other, families, maybe several families. It's intimate and it's personalized, and that's really going to be the strength. But I'm hoping that will involve going out of the city a bit more as well.
Mhm.
Big houses and wine tours, and interesting stories to be found there.
Yeah, the storyteller goes right out into the countryside, right? Storyteller does
I
not
do.
stay in London. Yeah, I think that's why you and I work so well together, because me too. I love working with families, or maybe a couple of families, or a mother and her grown sons, or group of grown siblings, or that I love that. So it's always just what a family wants, or just what a group wants. It's not trying to cater to a big group of diverse people or a large number of people. It's much more personal, and that's the way I like to travel too. And those are the clients I work with. So I think that's why you and I have a really good connection working together. Yeah.
I hope so. I think you just have to get creative with these things, and I kind of see it like this: that I can cater for different budgets and different requirements. So it's nice to have the really blue ribbon stuff, like crazy stuff like helicopters and hiring
Right.
speedboats. But the main thing is really being able to offer that personal
Yeah.
experience where that you're in safe hands, and also that what you're going to experience is tailored to you. So
Yes.
I can see a situation where people, they come to London and they want to see 2 or 3 days, or 2 or 3 things, or they might want to spend the day in London doing a tour around in a car, so that they're not on the public transport. But then as part of their time here, getting out of the city is something that, I think people will want to do, and
I agree
something
with
that
you. I agree on all
I'm
those
ready
things.
to
You
I'm
can have
ready
a
to do
little more
for
private
them.
space, just their family. But I also remember talking about things you do. I remember just something as simple, we would call it a pub crawl. Oh my gosh, there's pub crawls in, hundreds of cities around the world, right? All kinds of pub crawls. But You did it completely differently, because remember the three husbands, one of them was really into craft beer. I think he made his own craft beer. Another one was into history. So you actually didn't, you got them out like into, I don't want to say the suburbs, but the outlying neighborhoods, places where tourists never went. And you got them into these little local pubs, and one had like, one was haunted, and one had their own craft beer. Remember all of that? We had this whole route planned for, I think, 6 hours. They just discovered all these little gems, little hidden places they never would have found on their own. And they love that night. They're still talking about that night. And that was, technically a pub crawl, but it was just so unique and different. It was just the four of you, the three guys and you.
Well, that was, and they were around. I knew those pubs were good because they're my local pubs.
Yeah.
And I have a good knowledge. You can always trust that any man that drinks out of a tankard from the year of the Queen's coronation in 1953.
Look at that.
Will know pubs.
Yeah.
My great uncle Norman's.
Oh.
This is, but they. I knew. You see, the thing is that one of the things I know that people have really enjoyed when they've been my guests, it isn't just being in the centre of the city, because particularly in the summer, that can be very hot, very busy, very hectic, and you're not really seeing London. And so what I find a lot of my guests really enjoy doing is, coming out to, letting me show them parts of London which are the authentic side, but they're the nice authentic side. We've got great historic pubs, and we've got lovely places like Hampstead Heath, and these places have got stories associated with them anyway. So you've got that full gamut. I think that will be popular too, actually. People being in London but not being right in the centre, in Trafalgar Square, Leicester Square, because those are going to be quite hectic and busy with people from all around the world. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and I really enjoyed that tour. I really enjoyed that experience. I really enjoed with them. I always felt
that's a great job, right? You're here for 6 hours with a few smart guys from California. That's pretty great.
I did begin to chuckle when their wives phoned up, and you could hear the conversation, and they were saying, "Oh, so we've got to go back then? Okay, yes, of course we're coming for dinner, darling."
Of course, darling.
Sadness on their faces. Poor fellows. They were a great bunch, though, actually.
Yeah, they're really great.
I'll be straight back after another one of these delicious beers.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I get to work with my business with so many wonderful families. It's really a treat. So before we close off, is there anything else you want to tell us about your plans in London, or about anything else that's going on there?
Yes. I think you wanted a story of hope.
Oh, a story of hope. Yes. Tell us a story of hope.
So May 8th next month is VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, the 50th anniversary.
Oh.
We're probably in the biggest scrape now that we've been in since World War II. And a veteran who is 99 years old, because we can't go outside, he started doing a sponsored walk in his garden.
Okay.
So he's literally walking, doing laps around his garden.
I hope it's a big garden.
This is his name. Here he is. Captain Tom Moore. He was Captain Tom.
Say that again, because when you show the picture, it's good to see the picture, but then we can't hear you.
His name's Captain Tom Moore. He is a World War II veteran, and he started doing this to raise money for the NHS. And he set out with the goal of raising £250. He's raised 13.5 million.
Wow!
To go to the National Health Service.
Walking around his garden.
And I think it's one of those things where, I know. And what's wonderful about it is the last time he had a Zimmer frame, he's very elderly. He's 99 years old.
Wow.
But I think what's very touching about it is the last time we were in this position in this country, it was him and his generation who were in the front line and went out to bat for us. And now he is one of the last few remaining, and he's done this to raise money for those people now that are doing what he did 75 years ago. They are the people in the front line risking their lives. So Captain Tom Moore, £13.5 million for our NHS staff. And what an absolute legend, you know.
That's a great, I have goosebumps.
I take my hat off to him.
Yes, I have goosebumps all over my whole body. That's a good story. I love that. 50-year span, incredible. All right, Mr. Tom, thank you so much, Tom the Storyteller. That was a really good reporting from London. I loved hearing what's going on there now, and also what to look forward to. So,
you're welcome, Melanie. It's been a pleasure. Stay at home and stay safe. And from me in London, absolute pleasure to speak with you. And cheerio.
Cheerio. Bye-bye, Tom.
Bye-bye.